Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Kerbal Space Program 2. I'm excited to get started. It seems like the game is pushing us forward and we are going to be visiting the Mun today. So let's go ahead and pick up where we left off. So first things first, we have a whole bunch of science, but let's go ahead and check out the mission control and see what we're going to need for it. So we only have one mission available because everything else here is completed, and it is the Mun or Bust mission, which means that we have to get into orbit with the Mun. That's all we need, just a simple orbit. I think we can do that. I think we've played enough Kerbal 1, so hopefully some of that translates over into Kerbal 2. So let's go ahead and check out our research and development. We've got plenty of science to spend, and seems like a lot of this stuff is going to be very, very useful. I've purposely not looked down the tech tree. I've only just barely peeked into the second node before, just enough to see what the first bit of science was. But I'm excited to see how this progresses. I know that each level of the tech tree is supposed to get you further and further away from Kerbin, and so I'm excited to kind of do that. One of the things that we're going to be able to do with this series that I haven't really done in previous series is time warp. And what I mean by that is just flagrantly just time warp to where I need it, my craft to be, or my launch point to be, my rendezvous with another planet. I've always played where I like to take advantage of my time and use it wisely and always be doing something with it. And if we're trying to get to Duna and we're just spending 2 years to get to the right inclination to launch to it, that's 2 years we're spending that we're not launching other satellites or flights or doing things like that. We're just solely spending that extra time. And I don't know, for some reason, I know it's not a problem, isn't never a problem in Kerbal unless you're using things like TAC life support or Kerbalism or things like that, but just it never really sat well with me. But with KSP2, I'm going to allow major time warps like that. So after unlocking all those different parts, we're going to look at one of our best ones, and that is this probe core right here. There is a mod to play with probes before cruise, but I didn't want to mod this too extremely for my first playthrough. I do have some quality of life mods on there, but something like a probed before crew, readjust the tech tree, and I didn't want to mess around with that too much, but I strongly feel that we should still take a probes before crew mentality to our missions, as well as a sensible aspect of mapping the location before you attempt to land on something. So that's what we are doing here. We just have a contract to orbit the Mun. It's probably assumed that you're going to bring Kerbal there, but we are going to send this little spy satellite into a polar orbit, and it is going to map the Mun. That is from the mod Orbital Survey for KSP2. It is the equivalent to the ScanSat mod from KSP1. We're going to throw some lights on here, because what is a satellite without blinking lights? How will we even know that it's a satellite? Alright, just changing a few functions. I'm getting used to this new UI. It's a little funky, but nothing I can't handle. So now we're going to throw this Terrier engine on here. Always a good choice for a vacuum capable craft. The only other options we have are the swivel and the Reliant, so that's not going to be useful for getting us to orbit. I'm drawing up this handy little transfer calculator that comes with the game, but it's a little confusing sometimes. I wish that you could add or subtract motions on it. Like it always includes the 34,000 or 3400 delta V to capture around Kerbin, but that doesn't take into account the fact that I'm going to be aerobraking, and I don't need to spend 3400 delta V to capture. I'm just going to be aerobraking. But you don't have the option of turning off that calculation of the 3400. So I wish it had a little bit of adjustability to it, and then I think it would be really useful. But as it stands now, it's not ideal for me anyhow. So we just built our launch vehicle and just kind of talked through it, but it's pretty standard to anything that we've built on our channel. Very creatures of habit when it comes to rocket building. I'm trying to put this in a fairing, and this is my first time dealing with them. I thought I saw images of how the system worked when it first came out, and I thought it was very cool. However, the fairing ends up being fairly buggy, unfortunately. So since we're only making a one-way trip to the Mun, the calculator actually works fairly well, so that's good to see. So we're going to go ahead and rename this to the Mun Scanner 1. Very creative, I know. And this is going under the workspace of Muncrafts. Also very creative. Thank you very much. I thought it was very creative myself. So we're going to make sure our staging is correct. This staging window is a little funky sometimes. I feel like you have to really play around with that. So remember how I said the fairing didn't work? Yeah, it really didn't work. So we're just going to go ahead and get rid of that entirely. Yeah, for some reason it just wouldn't separate from the craft. No matter what I did, I did restarts and quick saves and quick loads and all that, but fairing was just not going to work on this launch. So here we are on the launch pad in the early evening, getting ready to take off. We're still going to use the launch countdown. Novelty hasn't worn off for me yet. I'm enjoying it. I also like the little features like those sparks lining up, the coolant's going. And when we take off, for some reason, we head the wrong way. Must have turned our nav ball incorrectly. Bill, you need to remember, we're not in Australia anymore. You gotta point that the right way up. Glorious, look at that. Huge rocket plumes. We're about to cross through the cloud layer. Just heading up, nothing but pure power. Those rocket sounds just fueling our way. I had to play it with music and sound effects to full max because they did such a good job with the sound design in this game. Oh, there we are. We got a clean burnout, separation. A little chatter from the KSC telling us that we did that as expected. I love that the plume expands the higher up you go. Absolutely gorgeous. So we're going to go ahead and skip ahead just a little bit because everyone's seen a come up to orbit and a coasting period. So let's go ahead and finish on our circularization. That solar flare is just looking beautiful. And with that, we separate and time warp forward. And we're going to skip ahead a little bit further until it's time to make our burn. And our lower stage did a good job of circularizing us most of the way, and so we're only needing a little bit of our Terrier fuel, our Terrier engine, to use only a little bit of its fuel to push up the rest of the way. So here we are in orbit, 100 by 200, semi-eccentric orbit, but decent enough. We should be fine to intercept the Mun. We have very little inclination. I don't know where I could find that, probably in the Micro-Engineer app. Here you'll see me struggling with figuring out which way is up, because in KSP2 the orbit lines are reversed, and I guess I never asked. I never knew that. Never paid attention to anybody saying that, so no one told me. So it was quite a struggle at first to set up my maneuver. There we go. I love the way that they've designed and shown the intercepts now. I think that's very intuitive, very easy to learn for someone who might have difficulty visualizing the orbital mechanics of things like this. Because I mean, it's difficult. It's rocket science after all. There we go. I love how the music comes into play when you're making maneuvers, and it rises and swells as you expend your fuel. And even if it's just for a short amount of time, the music is responsive to it, and it's so much different than just a game's regular ambient soundtrack, you know, which is just a song or a handful of songs that they've created that kind of play on a loop. This is really immersive and interactive. So, I mean, say what you want about KSP2, but they did an excellent job in the design department, and I think it'd be hard pressed to argue that. It's part of the reason why I'm so excited to do more exploration in here and go to other planets, because every celestial body has its own soundtrack, and I kind of want to hear them all. I had a lot of fun in this episode, and the soundtrack that we get to hear for the Mun is very fun. Was not what I was expecting, but it was definitely what I was hoping for. So I'm trying to make a mid-course correction. I'd like to get into a polar orbit, and it takes a few goes at it, so I'm going to go ahead and skip past all the little fiddles that I made and just get to the final resting place. And this is mostly 90-degree polar orbit, which is straddling the sunlit and darkened side of the Mun. Not ideal, but it's a start. And it's great to know that some of those skills from KSP1 can translate here as well. That even with given new tools, I can still make a Mun intercept, and I like that. So it would have been a little bit more beneficial for me to spend a little time looking at the craft and looking specifically at the satellite or scanner dish that we have attached on top of it, so I can find the ideal altitude for it to be and for it to operate at. However, I don't do that until after we've made our capture burn and we're at the altitude that we're at. So we're going to have to do some adjustments there as well. But for now, let's enter the sphere of influence. I was so excited. I didn't want to zoom too far. And the KSC lets us know we finally made it, so we go ahead and make our maneuver plan. But like I mentioned before, I should have lowered it a little bit sooner, and it would have been a little bit cheaper. But nonetheless, it works out. And we're using K2D2 on a few of these maneuvers. It allowed us the ability to get some of these cinematic shots. We're not going to do it on everything, but I feel that we've proven our mettle enough that we can use some automation if need be. After all, these probes aren't flown by hand in the control room. Anyways. And with that noise, that tells us that we have successfully completed our contract to orbit the Mun. But we are not really in the right position for our scanner to work. We're a little too high, so we're going to have to do some adjustments to put it into place. And sometimes that's all it takes. So initially, I was given the message that our altitude was too high for the scanner to work, that we needed to be below 500 kilometers. So we have some science that we can do here, so we're definitely going to do that. But when we come here to check out the scanner, we see that it is scanning, but we are actually above the ideal altitude, which isn't great. You know, again, we wish could have seen that information in the vehicle assembly building, because then we could have had a little bit better idea of our mission plan. However, we still have 300 Delta V left, give or take, and this shouldn't be too much. This should be a handful of Delta V at most to get myself at the right altitude for both apoapsis and periapsis. And there we are. Nice, clean, circular orbit. And we are now at the ideal altitude, so our scanner will be able to pick up the most that it can in its given area. So let's we're going to time warp this and let it build up a map of the Mun. It would be good, though, to grab our contract completion awards. Yeah, see, they expected us to do it with a Kerbal. Come on, we got probes available. Or you think we're going to risk Jeb or Val? There we go. So our next contract is to establish a very specific orbit. And then the next one is to plant a flag on the Mun. And the last one, or the primary one, is to land a Kerbal, or to land something on the Mun. So coming back to our satellite, we're going to just resume our progress on the map, time warping forward until we get a clearer vision of this celestial body that we call Mun. Beautiful. Wish the camera didn't do the flippy-do that it does. And I think that's a product of the type of orbit that we have, but that was unbearable. So we're just going to watch it spin around in map mode. In hindsight, I should have focused on the Mun, and then I wouldn't have had the spinning animation at all. It's about this time that I realized that I am not in the best orbit to get all the biomes because of the kind of horizontal aspect. I know in space there's no real horizontal vertical, but the horizontal aspect that I am on with the light and dark side of the Mun. So we're just going to do a slight little pivot, just ever so slightly, just a couple Delta V to get us in just a just ever so slightly different angle, and that'll give us more time in the light, which will mean that our map will be able to be filled a little bit better. So we're going to plug this into K2D2 and let the computer handle the micro burn. As the UI freaks out because of the electrics not having solar charge. That's okay. And just like that, our burn is done. See, that's why I think K2D2 isn't a cheat or anything like that. It's just computers have objectively better reflexes than humans do. So we'll leave the space flight up to them, and we'll just give them the ideas. Alright, so now here we are in our new orbit. Just trying to get an eye on the Mun. But you can see the map in the top left. As we zoom our way around, it's going to fill out much more. And here we go. And this is because when you're in a polar orbit, eventually over a given time, your path will cross over every given point of that body. This is true with planets in real life. This is how they do satellite mapping, is they have things in polar orbits that will just continuously go around taking pictures until we have a complete picture of what we're looking at. And now we do. And because of that mod, we can utilize that for our moon landing missions and things going forward. And we can do that for any celestial body that we want to visit. Oh, it's going to be great. I love it. So we have some Delta V left. We don't need the satellite anymore. It doesn't have any real communication dishes to speak of, so we can't really use it as a relay. Why not see if we can land it? Right? Like, just do a quick little impromptu landing. You know, we're not at the best orbit for it. We're going to spend more Delta V, you know, bringing our craft down to the surface than we will have to stop the thing. But even if we end up impacting, that's still one step more than we did, and it cleans up our tracking system. So let's give it a shot. And like I mentioned before, that the soundtrack is dependent on what you're doing. I am very excited about the soundtrack to come, so I think I'm just going to stop talking, and we're just going to enjoy this approach. Ugh, those drums. I know, right? Yeah. And it's even better when you do it as a landing mission. But we're going to do that in the next episode. I've got a couple of these stocked up, so I'm excited to bring to you the progress that we've made so far. But let's go ahead and spend our well-earned science. We've got 426, 24? Yeah, who's counting? We got a lot of science, so let's go ahead and unlock everything that we really can. We're definitely going to want this Science Junior, which is smaller. Kitty Cat, do you mind? I'm trying to record an episode here. Yeah, so we're going to get basically everything except for the monopropellant drive and the micro construction, because those aren't exactly necessary, but this power lander is going to be huge. Getting bigger rockets, bigger engines is going to be huge. So I decided to unlock that, which brought us into the tier 2. So I'm taking a quick peek. I'm seeing big landers. I'm seeing the Poodle engine. I'm seeing heat shields, and I'm getting excited. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So we don't have enough to unlock anything else, so we're just going to leave it for next time. I'm so excited. I've been wanting to play this game for so long, I can't even tell you. I hope you're enjoying it. But anyways, that's where I'm going to leave today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward for more KSP2. If you did, please consider giving me a like, drop me a comment, let me know your thoughts, and I will see y'all in the next one. Take care.